You're listening to Red Pill 78. I am the Corruption Detector, and this is your Red Pill News for Thursday, April 11th. Well, folks, we've got some pretty incredible stories for you today. We've got the media in Congress going crazy over what Bill Barr said. We've also had the editor of a major journalistic organization arrested inside the embassy of a foreign nation. Incredible. We've also got Trump team speaking out about the spying that was done against them. So we're going to get into all this and more. But first, a quick word from my sponsor. If you can, remember the horror of the 2008 recession and how it caught millions of Americans off guard. With that in mind, I'm sure you'll want to know that the next recession is just creeping around the corner. The market drops we saw in September and December last year were just the warning signs. One man, who I trust has the guts to speak the truth on America's secrets that are hiding in plain sight. You've probably heard of him. Best-selling author Doug Casey. He's been called America's top legendary speculator, and every major political and economic forecast Doug has ever made over the last 3 decades came true. His research shows a major stock crash is around the corner, and it could be triggered by a powerful group of individuals whose efforts are intended to simply sabotage Donald Trump's presidency. And the worst part? Hardworking Americans who saved diligently for retirement are the ones who will feel it the most. We've documented how Doug expects this market crash and recession to play out, how it's aimed at the Trump presidency, and who's behind it. And yes, what simple steps you should take now if you want to survive financially and live peacefully under the radar when it all goes down. To watch this free presentation, go to www.badnews2020.com and watch for free. Once again, that's www.badnews2020.com and listen to what Doug has to say. Now, before we get into everything, I just want to give a very special thank you to all of my viewers, all of my supporters, everyone who decides to check out my sponsors, everyone who is a patron of mine. YouTube has decided, fully that they really don't want me to put out anything that I'm going to benefit from. They demonetize all of my videos. They remonetize them once I upload a new video, and by that time, nobody's watching the old videos. So everything that my supporters and my viewers are doing to help me continue this mission, you cannot know how much I appreciate it. I would not be here if it wasn't for you. That was the point of my video the other day where I showed that plaque that YouTube gave me. And I don't care that YouTube gave me the plaque. What I care about is that all of you are here with me and watching these videos while I produce them. It means so much to me. And every time someone likes, shares, subscribes, all of that is supporting me. So thank you once again. And if you guys like the work that I do, then please do take the time to check out my sponsors and the things that they offer, because quite literally, without them, I would not be able to be here doing this. And they allow me to do and say a lot more without fear of reprisal and without fear of censorship. Although, of course, I am being censored still. It's just a hazard of being on this platform. YouTube does not want my videos to be seen, so they're not recommended in the same way that they were when I was initially putting out videos. They make it more difficult. I've had a lot of people tell me over the last couple weeks that they can't like my videos, that they've been unsubscribed, that it's difficult to find me. So it is vitally important that everyone watching this subscribes to my channel and turns on the notification bell so that when I do put a video out, you hear about it first. So thank you very much, everyone. I just wanted to say that before we get into the news. All right, first up. The media is in full panic after AG Barr drops that BOMB yesterday in Congress. Trump was spied on by the deep state during the campaign. Bill Barr sent the Democrats and their stenographers in the media into a tailspin Wednesday when he said Trump's campaign was spied on during 2016. Democrats and their lying media went into full shock. This was not in their script. Top Senate Democrats later called on Attorney General Bill Barr to walk back his spying allegation, and now the liberal media is in full panic mode. The truth is out. It cannot be stopped. Let's take a listen.
I don't want the truth. And the mainstream media, they're trying their very best to play down all the bombshells we have tonight. Washington Post, fake conservative writer Jennifer Rubin actually calling on Barr to be impeached. Her fellow far-left conspiracy sycophants at MSNBC, tinfoil hat conspiracy theory, MSNBC, fake news CNN, also trashing the Attorney General. Gee, they didn't do that to Rod Rosenstein or Mueller. Take a look.
I spy an Attorney General giving credence to conspiracy theories. It feels like that basically the Attorney General gaslit the country.
Bill Barr, one of our nation's most respected lawyers, a two-time Attorney General, turn in his tortoiseshell glasses for a tinfoil hat.
Barr has made really clear, I'm going to be an engine for the President of the United States. I am not the Attorney General for the country.
The Attorney General of the United States in a dog whistle to Sean Hannity is a big deal.
He is a flunky for Donald Trump. He's not an independent thinker. He sounds good. He seems sincere. But if you look at what he does, not what he says, then you see the actions of a hatchet man here, and it's really disturbing.
Conspiracy theorists for 2.5 years lying. The very people that lied for 2.5 years. They don't want their tinfoil hat conspiracy theories, their lies exposed. They've been pushing it every second, every hour, every minute of every day, including their coverage of this very topic just a few months ago. Take a look at this.
What we've seen and heard from the president in the past 5 days may be the biggest lie of all. Repeatedly, and with no facts to back him up, making the outrageous claim that the so-called deep state spied on his campaign.
This phony baloney story about a spy on the campaign. To call them a conspiracy theory is to give them too much credit.
The notion that somehow the FBI planted someone inside the campaign to spy on the campaign is just not true.
This unproven narrative of a spy being placed inside his campaign.
Did the intelligence community spy on President Trump and his campaign?
No, we did not.
They did, and they've been lying for 2.5 years and lying to you, the American people.
Listen to those 4 a.m. talking points. There was no spying, no spying. It's a C theory. None of this is true, except they've all been reporting on it for the last 2 years, talking about the counterintelligence operation. What do you think spying is? It's counterintelligence. You go in, you get information, all right? Remember when Trump said he had his wires tapped? Well, that's why he ended up leaving Trump Tower. And that's why they had to remodel the entire White House to get those devices out of there. This was spying. The Attorney General has said it. And these people are freaking out. Now, also yesterday, Bill Barr puts Democratic Senator grilling him about Mueller report in his place. He said, I am obviously the Attorney General. Attorney General Bill Barr appeared in front of the Senate Appropriations Subcommittee on Wednesday to discuss President Trump's 2020 budget request for the DOJ. Democrat Senator Chris Van Hollen of Maryland grilled Bill Barr about his summary report of Mueller's principal conclusions that revealed Trump did not collude with Russia during the 2016 campaign. Senator Van Hollen lost his cool and became frustrated with Bill Barr after repeatedly asking how he concluded Trump did not obstruct justice. Barr didn't flinch as he held his ground and refused to answer the Democrat senator's questions about the Mueller report that is still in the process of being redacted before it's released to the public. Color-coded, I might add, for their simple minds. You sent a letter to the United States Congress that included something which was a principal conclusion, which was not a conclusion reached by the Mueller report, Van Hollen said. You indicated that they did not exonerate the president. You did. And so I'm asking you whether you agree with Mueller that there were difficult issues of law and fact in making that assessment. That's not a question I can really answer, Barr said as Van Hollen became more unhinged and interrupted him. Van Hollen continued to browbeat Barr as he desperately tried to get the Attorney General to admit there is something sinister in the Mueller report in regards to Trump obstructing justice. Barr dug his heels in. I'm not going to discuss my decision. I will lay it out after the report is out. Van Hollen lost it. My Attorney General, Mr. Attorney General, the thing is, you put this out there, said Van Hollen. The president went out and tweeted the next day that he was exonerated. That wasn't based on anything in the Mueller report with respect to obstruction of justice. That was based on your assessment. That was on March 24th. And now you won't elaborate at all as to how you reached that conclusion. I'm not asking about what is in the Mueller report. I'm asking about your conclusion. It was the conclusion of a number of people, including me, and I am obviously the Attorney General, Barr replied. I don't know whether Bob Mueller supported my conclusion, Barr said to Van Hollen when asked if Mueller supported his conclusion. Barr is reportedly going to release the Mueller report with redactions next week, and he is scheduled to testify to the Senate Judiciary Committee on May 1st and the House Judiciary Committee on May 2nd. Let's take a listen to Senator Van Hollen.
You sent a letter to the United States Congress that included something which was a principal conclusion, which was not a conclusion reached by the Mueller report. You indicated that they did not exonerate the president. You did. And so I'm asking you whether you agree with Mueller that there were difficult issues of law and fact in making that assessment.
That's not a question I really can answer until I think.
Well, you did it, but you looked at the report, right? And you looked at the evidence of the report, and you made a decision. And you said that the president's not guilty of criminal obstruction of justice. I'm asking you, in your review of the report, did you agree with Mueller that there were difficult issues of law and fact?
I'm going to give my reaction and comments, about the report after the report.
Well, it would have been, but you put your view of the report out there on this issue of obstruction of justice, right? Nobody asked you to do that.
I didn't put my view of the report.
Well, you put your assessment on, you made a conclusion on the question of obstruction of justice that was not contained in the Mueller report. And I'm simply asking you, when you looked at the evidence, did you agree with Mueller and his team that there were difficult issues of law and fact?
As I say, I am going to explain my decision, and to the extent that requires any assessment of the Mueller report, I'm going to do that when the Mueller report is out.
Did your decision require you to look into the intent of the President of the United States with respect to obstruction of justice?
I'm not going to discuss my decision. I will lay it out after the report is out.
Mr. Attorney General, the thing is, you put this out there. I mean, the president went out and tweeted the next day that he was exonerated. That wasn't based on anything in the Mueller report with respect to obstruction of justice. That was based on your assessment. That was on March 24th. And now you won't elaborate at all as to how you reached that conclusion. Because I'm not asking you what's in the Mueller report. I'm asking about your conclusion. Let me ask you this.
Well, it was the conclusion of a number of people, including me, and I obviously am the Attorney General. It was also the conclusion of the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein.
I understand. No, I've read your letters,
others, and I will discuss that decision after the report is out.
Did Bob Mueller support your conclusion?
I don't know whether Bob Mueller supported my conclusion.
So in your June 2018 memo, you indicated a president can commit obstruction of justice in the classic sense of sabotaging a proceeding's truth-finding functions. Did you see any evidence in this report about whether or not President Trump committed what you call a classic sense of obstruction of justice?
I'm not going to characterize or discuss the contents of the report. The report will be made public
in reaching your
next week, and I will come up and testify at that point about it.
Right, but the thing about it is, Mr. General, you put your conclusion out there, and now you refuse to talk about any basis of your conclusion. I'm not asking you for what's in the report. I'm asking you how you reached your conclusion. Last question. Can you assure us that the key factual evidence relevant to charges of obstruction of justice will be included in the public report?
Could you just say
Can you assure us that the key factual evidence in the Mueller report related to charges of obstruction of justice will be available in the public report?
I believe it will, and that's one of the reasons why I want to review it after when the redaction team is done making the redactions, to make sure that there's nothing in there that would prevent that.
Listen, dummy. How many times do I have to tell you? I will explain everything when I release the report. We're not even here to talk about the Mueller report today. They're here to talk about the budget for the DOJ. These people are so thirsty. All they want is to get this guy into a spot where he's going to say something that's going to trip him up. Well, guess what? Barr is as cool as a cucumber. He is not saying anything. Deal with it, ninny. Boom! Corey Lewandowski said Trump knows Barack Obama authorized spying. He knew about this. He authorized this. Yes, he did. Former Trump campaign manager Corey Lewandowski and Trump advisor David Bossie joined Lou Dobbs on Wednesday to discuss the recent remarks by AG Bill Barr that the Trump administration was spied on. On Wednesday, Attorney General Bill Barr told the Senate Judiciary Committee that the Obama administration was spying on the Trump campaign in 2016. Democrat Senator Shaheen almost fell off her chair. On Wednesday night, Corey Lewandowski dropped a bomb on Lou Dobbs. Lewandowski said he spoke with the president and Trump believes Obama authorized the spying. Let's go ahead and take a listen to what Corey had to say.
Supposed to say, illegal surveillance versus something that the surveillance that the government should have been doing. And he said that's going to be now what he looks into is whether or not that should have happened. But it's remarkable.
Two people who were there at the time, Corey Lewandowski and David Bossie, their remarks.
He asked the president about this some time ago, and he said it very clearly. He believes this went all the way to the top of the previous administration. This didn't stop at Ben Rhodes or some other low-level underling. Barack Obama knew about this. He authorized it. It was either complicit or implicit in it, and there has to be accountability, and I'm happy Attorney General Barr is digging into this.
Corey Lewandowski's happy. Millions and millions, tens of millions of Americans are happy. Your thoughts about the Attorney General's announcement that we will now have an investigation?
I think most of us have probably the look on our face that Senator Shaheen had on her face when he said that. She said, "You don't think that you're not saying he was spied on," and that's when the Attorney General said, "Oh, yes, I do." There was this look on her face, as though she'd been frozen in amber for the last 2 years. Like there's gambling in Rick's Cafe, right? Yes, we now it's being said, but the timing is important. After everything we've experienced, the Attorney General saying that bluntly, and we know that it was a hoax, and we know that everything was...
The special counsel investigation.
Yes, the dossier and all of that. And it seems to be, even though I don't like what's happened over these last 2 years, Attorney General Barr, I think, is the perfect person to be doing this. It is important. It is a little frightening. But
I'm just thankful that he's there now. I have to tell you, that's all that matters to me.
It is that we are at the right place at the right time. It's a shame we had to go through this. It's horrible that it has occurred. But my goodness, people who did this should be punished. We must face it, or it will happen again. The president is correct. This should never, ever again be allowed to happen in this country.
And one of the reasons that he is so insistent is this president understands he is one of the few people, men, women, you name it, no matter what background, any characteristic you want to apply. I honestly don't believe another single American could have stood in his place and withstood this fuselage, this barrage, this constant, every day and from every direction assault like he did, and emerged from it even stronger.
And the fact that he did has highlighted also how sloppy they were, how arrogant they were, and how dumb they were. This is a new era.
I take a different message. I think it shows how strong he is.
Well, just by the juxtaposition. But Americans must realize that it's not just Donald Trump. The fact is he's representing all of us. This was an assault on the American people, not just on Mr. Trump. And thank goodness he's sitting there in that Oval Office now.
Amen. Yeah. Tammy Bruce, great to have you here. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Up next.
Frozen in amber. Oh, my headphones are falling off. Oh, Gene Shaheen. Oh, my goodness. They knew the whole time. It went straight to the top, and it's coming out. And these people are in full panic mode. Panic. Oh, just when you thought there would be no more indictments from the Mueller probe. Former Obama White House counsel expected to be indicted soon in case stemming from Mueller's probe. I hope he gets the same treatment that Paul Manafort received. Former Obama White House counsel Greg Craig expects to be indicted any day now on charges stemming from Mueller's probe related to work he did for Ukraine in 2012. Craig, 74, served as legal counsel for Obama from 2009 to 2010 and worked as senior legal counsel to Bill Clinton during his impeachment. It is believed Greg Craig will be charged for making false statements to Justice Department investigators during the Mueller investigation. According to Mr. Craig's legal team, Craig refused to accept a plea deal, and the case could be handed over to a grand jury for indictment within the next few days, the Wall Street Journal reported. Greg Craig was interviewed twice by Mueller's investigators about work he and his law firm did in Ukraine in 2012. Craig's lawyers said the case against him was conducted by prosecutors in the Southern District of New York, although they expect the indictment to come down from the Justice Department in D.C. and allege they are abusing their power. This case was thoroughly investigated by SDNY, and that office decided not to pursue charges against Mr. Craig. We expect an indictment by the D.C. U.S. Attorney's Office at the request of the National Security Division. Mr. Craig is not guilty of any charge, and the government's stubborn insistence on prosecuting Mr. Craig is a misguided abuse of prosecutorial direction, Craig's lawyer said in a statement. Craig was a partner in the law firm Scotton, Arps, Slate, Meagher, and Flom, LLP, which entered into a multi-million-dollar settlement with the DOJ over its work in Ukraine. Greg Craig worked with Paul Manafort in Ukraine. If he's indicted, he will be the first top Dem charged in a case stemming from Mueller's witch hunt. The first in a long line of many. It's happening. It's happening. And speaking of happenings, ex-FBI lawyer James Baker refuses to answer Representative Meadows when asked if multiple Trump associates were targeted with FISA warrants. Well, duh, we know they were. Representative Doug Collins on Wednesday released transcript of former FBI counsel James Baker's second interview with the House Judiciary Committee. James Baker gave two explosive testimonies to the House Judiciary Committee in October of 2018 in an unclassified setting. According to the newly released transcript, James Baker refused to answer when Congressman Mark Meadows asked if multiple Trump associates besides Carter Page were spied on with FISA warrants. It is believed that Obama's corrupt DOJ and FBI obtained FISA warrants on General Mike Flynn, Paul Manafort, and George Papadopoulos. However, it has not been confirmed. Baker's refusal to answer Meadows suggests that Obama's FBI and DOJ indeed spied on Flynn and others with FISA warrants. Meadows wanted to know how many FISA warrants related to Russia collusion that James Baker reviewed as it related to the probable cause portion. How many FISA applications did you review as it relates to Russia? Meadows asked Baker. FBI lawyers interjected and wouldn't let Barr answer, claiming the information is sensitive and almost always classified. Meadows continued to push back. Well, there was a text message in a non-classified setting that would indicate that there were multiple FISA applications, as many as 17 different FISA applications, look at that, that may or may have not related to this particular subject, Meadows said, adding, would it surprise you to know that there were, or is there more FISA applications beyond just Carter Page FISA application that we've been discussing as it relates to this investigation? An FBI lawyer interjected and would not let James Baker answer Meadows' questions on the FISA applications. Meadows continued, there's multiple texts. There's multiple texts that would indicate Lisa Page. It's in a text message between Lisa Page and Andy McCabe that says, you know, you're particular. I can read it. Would you like me to read it? Meadows was referring to a text message exchange between Lisa Page and Andrew McCabe that took place on October 19th, 2016, just days before the first FISA warrant on Carter Page was opened. There will be 9 packages for you to sign, with the possibility of 8 additional if the NSLB signs off on them. They'll probably won't be WUDSD phone by 7:30. The FISA team will be delivering them at 7, Lisa Page said in a text to McCabe. Were there multiple FISA applications? Meadows asked after reading Lisa Page's October 2016 text to McCabe. Were there other individuals connected directly or indirectly with the Trump campaign that had a FISA warrant placed on them for the purpose of surveilling conversations and collecting data other than Carter Page that you're aware of? Meadows asked again. I'm not going to answer it right now, Baker responded. An FBI lawyer, name redacted, objected to Meadows' question and promised to follow up with the Republican lawmaker, perhaps in a classified setting. Oh, Hussein's corrupt FBI and DOJ obtained one FISA warrant and 3 subsequent renewals, 4 total, on Trump campaign advisor Carter Page. The final FISA warrant was signed in June 2017 by DAG Rod Rosenstein and Andrew McCabe after Mueller was appointed special counsel to investigate Trump-Russia collusion. Baker's refusal to answer Meadows strongly suggests others in Trump's orbit were also spied on with FISA warrants. This is one of the biggest scandals in U.S. history, and all roads lead back to our former president and HRC. Now, when Congress and their talking heads in the fake stream media, when they say there was no spying, what would you call a FISA warrant? What would you say you're allowed to do when you hold a FISA warrant on a target? You are using it to spy on them. Spying. Spygate. That's why we call it Spygate. This is it, you guys. It is happening. 17 other warrants. How interesting. All right, guys. Now into the moment you have all been waiting for. Urgent breaking news. Ecuador has caved to the U.S. government, and they hand over Julian Assange to U.K. authorities inside the embassy. This is unprecedented. Unprecedented. This is it. Ecuador and the U.K. have no extradition agreement. So for the U.K. to walk into the embassy, it's as if they walked onto Ecuadorian soil and placed Julian Assange in handcuffs and drug him out. The Ecuadorian government, who has protected 2019 Nobel Peace Prize nominee and award-winning publisher Julian Assange, has caved to pressure from the U.S. government and allowed him to be arrested by the U.K. government inside the embassy. A lawyer for Assange told the Gateway Pundit that the arrest was really quick. Now, there is Julian being dragged out. We've actually got footage of it. We're going to take a look at that next. The Ecuadorian ambassador invited the British police inside. Assange did not walk out of the embassy. Let's go ahead and watch and see what happens. Now, take a notice. He's going to be holding a book by Gore Vidal. Looking like Ernest Hemingway. Poor guy, he needs to see a doctor, big time. UK police completely literally carrying Julian Assange out of the embassy. He did not want to go willingly. Now, we've spoken about this many times on the program here before. By taking Julian Assange into American custody and charging him, they're now going to have a trial. What's that trial going to allow for? Discovery. You have the site, we have the source. Now, we're going to look into the actual charges here deeply in a moment. But WL had posted, urgent, Julian Assange did not walk out of the embassy. The Ecuadorian ambassador invited British police into the embassy, and he was immediately arrested. Ecuador has illegally terminated Assange's political asylum in violation of the international law. He was arrested by British police inside the Ecuadorian embassy minutes ago. Now, here is a statement, I believe, from WL. The threat to the media posed by the Trump administration's prosecution of Julian Assange. Now, I don't believe that this is going to set a precedent. Now, there's some things that they said regarding the charges against Julian Assange, showing that he did more than just accept the information, that he actually helped Chelsea Manning break into the computer system. That kind of makes it a completely different thing. Also saying that he actively incited Chelsea Manning to go ahead and do it, suggesting that she get more information than previous attempts had allowed. Let's see. All right. Here are the actual charges themselves. This was filed back in 2018. United States versus Julian Paul Assange. So, let's see. So, it's talking about how Chelsea Manning was working at Forward Operating Base Hammer in Iraq. Manning held a top secret security clearance. Let's see. The disclosure of classified information. Julian is the founder of WikiLeaks. Between January 2010 and May 2010, Manning downloaded 4 nearly complete databases from departments and agencies of the United States. These databases included approximately 90,000 Afghanistan war-related significant activity reports, 400,000 Iraq war-related significant activities reports, 800 Guantanamo Bay detainee assessment briefs, and 250,000 U.S. Department of State cables. So these are Cablegate. These were the collateral murder files showing war crimes committed by people in the theater of war. They were all classified. And Assange agreed to assist Manning in cracking a password stored on United States Department of Defense computers connected to the secret Internet Protocol Network, a United States government network used for classified documents and communications. Manning, who had access to the computers in connection with her duties as an intelligence analyst, was also using the computers to download classified records to transmit to WikiLeaks. Army regulations prohibited Manning from attempting to bypass or circumvent security mechanisms on government-provided information systems and from sharing personal accounts and authenticators, such as passwords. The portion of the password Manning gave to Assange to crack was stored as a hash value in a computer file that was accessible only by users with administrative-level privileges. Manning did not have those privileges and used special software, namely a Linux operating system, to access the computer file and obtain the portion of the password provided to Assange. Cracking the password would have allowed Manning to log onto the computers under a username that did not belong to her. Such a measure would have made it more difficult for investigators to identify Manning as the source of disclosures of classified intel. Prior to the formation of the password cracking agreement, Manning had already provided WikiLeaks with hundreds of thousands of classified records that she downloaded from departments and agencies of the United States, including the Afghanistan war-related significant activities reports and Iraq reports of the same. At the time he entered into this agreement, Assange knew that Manning was providing WikiLeaks with classified records containing national defense information of the United States. Assange was knowingly receiving such classified records from Manning for the purpose of publicly disclosing them on the WikiLeaks website. Now, for example, on March 7, 2010, Manning and Assange discussed the value of the Guantanamo Bay detainee assessment briefs, and on March 8, 2010, before entering the password cracking agreement, Manning told Assange that she was throwing everything she had on JTF Gitmo at Assange now. Manning also said, after this upload, that's all I really have got left, to which Assange replied, curious eyes never run dry in my experience. So there, right there, he is encouraging Chelsea Manning to crack more information out and give it to WikiLeaks, of course, because he's a journalist, but also, the fact that he provided Chelsea Manning a means to crack that, he really did break laws. And I know that he's not a citizen of the United States, but still, by charging him with this stuff, by getting him out of the Ecuadorian embassy and bringing him to the United States for trial, I am certain that there are going to be many questions asked about the other information related to WikiLeaks, such as the Podesta files, such as the Hillary Clinton emails, all of those things that will be discovered in court. And I think that there's a strong chance that Julian Assange is going to be exonerated. He is going to comply with questions that will be asked of him. Hopefully he will comply. If he keeps his mouth shut, then he's probably looking at significant prison time. All right, so again, on to more of those charges. Earlier today, UK police caved to pressure from the US government, entered the Ecuadorian embassy in London, and allowed Julian Assange to be arrested by the UK government inside the embassy. A lawyer for Assange told the Gateway Pundit that arrest was really quick. The DOJ later this morning released a statement on the charges against Julian Assange. Assange was charged with a single count of conspiracy to commit computer intrusion for agreeing to break a password to a classified U.S. government computer. Now, this is direct from the Justice Department. It's a summation of what we just went over with the actual charges. Julian Assange, 47, the founder of WikiLeaks, was arrested today in the United Kingdom pursuant to the U.S.-UK extradition treaty in connection with the federal charge of conspiracy to commit computer intrusion for agreeing to break a password to a classified U.S. government computer. According to court documents unsealed today, and the charge relates to Assange's alleged role in one of the largest compromises of classified information in the history of the United States. The indictment alleges that in March 2010, Assange engaged in a conspiracy with Chelsea Manning, a former intelligence analyst in the U.S. Army, to assist Manning in cracking a password stored on the U.S. Department of Defense computers connected to the secret Internet Protocol Network, a U.S. government network used for classified documents and communications. Manning, who had access to the computers in connection with her duties as an intelligence analyst, was using the computers to download classified records to transmit to WikiLeaks. Cracking the password would have allowed Manning to log onto the computers under a username that did not belong to her. Such a deceptive measure would have made it more difficult for investigators to determine the source of the illegal disclosures. Now, Assange is charged with conspiracy to commit computer intrusion and is presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. If convicted, he faces a maximum penalty of 5 years in prison. Actual sources for federal crimes are typically less than the maximum penalties. A federal district court judge will determine any sentence after taking into account the U.S. sentencing guidelines and other statutory factors. G. Zachary Terwilliger, U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, John C. Demers, Assistant Attorney General for National Security, and Nancy McNamara, Assistant Director in charge of the FBI's Washington Field Office, made the announcement after the charges were unsealed. So, the extradition will be handled by the Department of Justice's Office of Internal Affairs. All right, so 5 years max. He's looking at less because, that's just how it works. And again, even less because he is going to comply. He's going to talk about exactly what happened. Now, there is no point not to. He needs to give up the information on the goods that he released a long time ago, indicating exactly the horrible, horrible deeds that took place inside those released emails, and provide the rest of those emails that we know they must have. Now, finally, just prior to the arrest of Julian Assange, Cassandra Fairbanks filmed the same British undercover police this week who had arrested Julian Assange. Last week, WikiLeaks announced via two government sources that Assange's expulsion would be in a matter of hours or days, leading to a public backlash against the government and the intervention of two UN special reporters. In response to the report from WikiLeaks, Ecuador's Ministry of Foreign Affairs released a menacing statement saying that the revocation of asylum is a sovereign act, but that his expulsion is not imminent. They declined to define what was meant by imminent. Since that time, protesters of every political stripe have held rallies in support of Julian Assange outside of the embassy in London. The Gateway Pundit's Cassandra Fairbanks went to London this past weekend to cover events outside the Ecuadorian embassy. On Monday night, Cassandra spotted an undercover police vehicle staked out outside the embassy. On Tuesday, Cassandra reported that the same car was sitting outside the embassy spying on the activities. Cassandra approached the vehicle on Tuesday, late night, and confronted the officers. She confronted the police for the third time. How come you guys are watching him, but you don't want to be watched yourselves? Why do the watchers not want to be watched? They covered their faces. Let's go ahead and see what Cassandra found.
Hey, are you guys worried about being parked here for so long? Hi, I'm a journalist from Washington, D.C. I've already spoke to you guys twice before. You told me that you're not media, that you're not journalists. I'm trying to cover the covert operation against Julian Assange. You guys are the third round of people, at least, that's been sitting in this car in the last 28 hours. Can you please tell me how long you're planning to be out here? Are more people going to come take over for you after this? The Ecuadorian government has said that they might expel Julian Assange from the embassy. Are you waiting for that? How come you guys are watching him, but you don't want to be watched yourself? Why do the watchers not want to be watched? I would really like an answer to this. We're going to continue to cover this. You may as well just talk to us. How much is this going to cost taxpayers? How long has this operation been going on? He's been in there for 7 years. Have you guys been monitoring it for 24/7 for 7 years now? Do you guys not feel bad? He has asylum, and he's a journalist. You don't feel bad doing this? I respect police, and I'm glad that they're there to keep us safe, but this is not keeping anyone safe. Shame on you.
Well, I guess we have an answer to the question, who watches the Watchers? That's apparently Cassandra Fairbanks. Cassandra Fairbanks has a bit of a checkered past, but good on her for getting that footage. On Thursday morning, the same undercover police entered the Ecuadorian embassy. They dragged Julian Assange from the embassy. Cassandra reported this morning that the men who entered and dragged Julian Assange from the embassy were the same operatives she filmed on Tuesday. This is one of the guys who was arresting Julian. So many people tried to tell me I was crazy and that they weren't cops. Well, let's go ahead and look at that.
Hiya, I'm with the media. We're interviewing members of the public about the situation at the Ecuadorian embassy. Do you guys have any opinions about Julian Assange?
Don't know anything about it,
Like, you know, WikiLeaks, right? You don't? You haven't heard of WikiLeaks?
No. No. I don't want to be filmed though, so...
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Cheers.
Any opinions on WikiLeaks?
None at all.
You know who they are though, right?
What?
You know who they are though, right? Like, you've heard of WikiLeaks. So, have you been following the story or just not interested?
Not interested.
Fair enough. Okay, have a nice day.
Oh my goodness. All right, now, I realize where I'm pulling this up on, but I only did this because this was the best picture I could find. This is the book that Julian Assange was holding when he was dragged from the American embassy. Gore Vidal, History of the National Security State. Very interesting. I think it's no mistake that this is the book that he was holding when he was dragged out. There's been a history of people being dragged out by the police or exiting courthouses, and they tend to hold on to a book that has a message that they want to send to people. So this is Gore Vidal's book regarding the history of the American National Security State. Let's go ahead and see if we can't read a little information here about it. Okay, so Gore Vidal, from the back of the book, says, I think everybody should take a sober look at the world about us. Remember that practically everything that you're told about other countries is untrue. What we're told about ourselves and our great strength and how loved we are, forget it. Our strength is there, but it's the kind of strength that blows off your hand while you hold up a grenade. It's a suicidal strength as well as a murderous one. So here we are, and let us hope that it is not the end of the road, even though there's every sign that it is not the yellow brick road ahead. Very interesting. You know, I would have to agree with Gore Vidal on a lot of that. This has been the goal of the deep state, to lie to us, to tell us untruths, to pretend that other countries are our enemy. We do not need war. We definitely need a military to protect us from our enemies, but we do not need to be in endless wars. And this is one of the tenets of President Trump's presidency. He realizes that. He realized that there's no need to send men and women around the world to destroy their lives, to force them to kill. We need a strong military to protect us here at home. This is the homeland. This is where we need to be spending our time, our money, and our effort. And that is what President Trump is doing. President Trump is bringing our men and women home. President Trump is bringing them back to this great nation so that they can be here with us instead of forever in a foreign land, living in a dust bowl out in the middle of nowhere. God bless each and every one of our citizens who has the courage to join the military and to take up arms against our enemies. The point is now, The greatest enemies that we have are here in our nation, within the borders of our nation. The banksters, the fraudsters, white-collar crime, organized crime, it has run rampant and taken over our nation. And this is the point of the Great Awakening, making people realize exactly who our enemies are and what has happened. This has been a slow boil. We are like frogs in a pot, slowly being brought to the point where we lose all freedoms. Well, at the same time, we have slowly awakened tens of millions of people, not only here, but across the globe. Of course, we have enemies, all right? But they are the leaders of nations. They are the leaders of these organizations, these banks, these financial institutions. Those are the enemies. The people of these nations are not our enemies. They have been brainwashed. They have been taught to hate. They have been taught that we are the enemy. We have been taught that they are the enemy, but it's not them and it's not us. As citizens of this planet, we are all essentially the same people. We've all been lied to, and now so many of us are awake, and this is a wonderful, wonderful time. I am definitely saddened by the fact that Julian Assange has been arrested, but I cannot think that his arrest will not be brought for good purpose. I want to thank everyone for joining me. As always, this has been Red Pill 78. I am the Corruption Detector, and this was your Red Pill News. Good luck, everyone, and God bless.